Thank you so much. It's interesting because I consider myself to have a very interesting background and I actually helped form who I am. So, born and raised in New York City and particularly in the 70s and 80s, having a particular healthcare, or I should say high school slash healthcare slash all other experiences, New York being exposed to industries like Wall Street, the entertainment industry, and municipality. I ended up having my journey in healthcare by working in the fire department and then going into healthcare from that perspective. And, to put it all in, a point of view, somebody, CFO, his name was Hal McNeil at the time of one of the healthcare organizations, chose to give me an opportunity to become the healthcare manager at that particular hospital. And I am always kind of grateful for that particular part of the journey because somebody gave me that opportunity. They were able to see something that others may not or may have seen and allowed me to basically start my journey. And that journey then, helped, raise and trying to navigate healthcare in the different organizations I've worked for. I went from being managers of help desks and that kind of thing to directors to CIO position. And I've navigated my way up from New York City to the Hudson Valley. And then I always say I've moved throughout the entire state to Western New York. And then my last organization was at Penn State Health when I was recruited to be the CIO there in the College of Medicine. So that journey I'm always, indebted to somebody giving me an opportunity, a Black individual, Black male youth who they were able to see something. And I always look at it as there are other Cletis girls out there, and there are other types of people that you may not always traditionally see as a potential leader, but you have to look back and give opportunities, and a lot of people will flourish when given that proper opportunity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion basically helped me, an individual, be provided an opportunity that I probably would not have been, provided prior. I'll give an example. Many years ago, when I first started going to CHIME, I realized that I was one of the few Black CIOs within the industry. Thousands of people in the room, and many people, whether it's female, whether it's Black, whether it's Muslim, whether it's Asian, Latinx, realize that you're the only, right? Well, I was the few. And I know definitively that there was not a high representation of African American CIOs within the industry. And I know that I always use that as kind of that cornerstone and trying to say, well, there's something not right with that model. The people, my colleagues at that time, did not look like me. And I wanted to make sure we put a journey to change that and making an impact to expose the healthcare technology sector to greater masses, to show that there's opportunities to move up throughout your career in order to become an executive in the IT space. And it doesn't stop with just African American men, it's African women, again, Latinx, women in general. There weren't a lot of women CIOs years ago. We're seeing many more than we did before, but there's still a way to go. And again, that's where diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging helps, again, motivate me to continue that particular pathway to help reinforce and influence the industry so that we can continue to find gems throughout our communities. One of the biggest things that I believe that continues to influence is variability. Variability is key, because I know in the last few months, if not year and change, it seems to be an assault on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. In essence, people seem to be moving away from it. We've seen how some states have responded, and that's just banning things and almost, going down, they're mixing DEI and B with a political perspective, right? they call it the woke thing. And by the way, our youth they're appalled by using that word woke, because that's not what it means. But anyway, I think, we have to understand that DEIB is versatile, and it's versatile to the sake that it's not just about color, it's not just about gender, not just about race. There are about 26 different variations of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And it's not about sexual orientation. It's a culmination of things. And I think we need to remind ourselves that versatility, that ability to say, hey, it could be somebody who has disability, it could be a veteran, it could be a culmination of different characteristics. That's the thing that I think we need to remind ourselves of. And, I know there's a lot of passionate people in the United States. I don't know too many people who are anti-veterans. So, we have to keep in mind that, we have to do better for mass of people. Drive would be another, kind of going back into that concept of people moving away. I think we have to continue to drive forward and making sure that we do not necessarily waver. I've seen personally in my career, when I first got to my previous organization, people were telling us that they noticed that my leadership team didn't have a high representation of female, and in essence basically challenged me. You need to practice what you preach. I had one or two women working for me when I first got there, and then by the time I left, I had over 60% of my staff, my direct reports, being women. And then I'm proud of that, because I can tell you, without that drive and people continuing to drive me, you have to practice what you preach. So that's one of the pieces. And then the last piece is commitment. It's very similar to drive, but you have to be committed to your efforts. Unwavering commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Again, not playing the wave of what political winds that are in the air, but by being committed, you're saying and put a stake in the ground that this is important to the organization. We know that diversity, there's evidence that shows that diverse work environments provides true progress within your organization, because you're not having a bunch of yes people. You're having people that are going to bring diverse thought, diverse social, economic, capacity, which I think is extremely important. Me being one that was not born with the spoon or silver spoon in my mouth, I know it was important to be able to show the perspective of being, from an inner city. And, in essence, being able to help represent the people that we're serving, particularly that we are doing it in healthcare space. So I think that commitment to what we're doing is like the drive. It would help us be successful and help really, move our goal, right, in order to bring different thoughts and help with innovation and all of the things that come along with, effective and efficient diversity. Like anything, you second guess yourself, right? You wonder. There was a few squeaky wheels that would say, hey, one of the things that we did in my organization, my previous organization, we had in our town halls, we did diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging sessions, like somewhat TED Talks, and we dedicated time, right, for that every month in our town halls. And there were people who would say, reach out to me and say, I don't know why we're doing it. It's not right. We shouldn't do it. And you had to stay steadfast. And it's interesting because if you go on the squeaky wheel approach, you question yourself and you second guess, is this the right thing? But I had more people coming up to me and tell me how much they appreciate what we're doing, rather than those that were the squeaky wheels who said they didn't. And I tell you, that's what goes back to, the commitment in that sense. But what you also do is take that effort, and one of the last things we were doing is saying, hey, look, when you look at all aspects of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, what we ended up doing is saying people are doing it in their communities, whether they're doing homeless programs or they're doing food clinics, they're doing all of these things. We put a program together that we said it was part of their goal, right? To say, hey, you show us what you've been doing throughout your community in the hospital or the hospital system or wherever it is, and you get credit towards that goal, right? So you have the, just doing it, not meeting standards, meeting it and exceeding. And we put the criteria of how many different activities that they needed to participate in order to get that particular goal. And that's practicing what you preach. That's putting the, wheels in motion to have commitment to your teams. And I can tell you, it was so impressive because whether we did, potlucks or food banks or different types of things where they had internal organization credits, people were doing things externally, quickly saw that the majority of our team members were already in compliance with that goal in the exceeding range, right? Because again, people are always doing things that are when you look at the holistic element of diversity. So going back into, that's almost making it an organic community outreach approach to diversity, equity, inclusion, right? To do the different criteria that people are natively doing on their own, bringing it into the workforce and saying, how do you get credit? And then there are some people who say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can go ahead and do that and then get credit for it. So in essence, you're injecting a very different approach in order to get a community-centric, model going on. And we were very, very successful at that. I'm very happy to do it, and knowing that that's something that it just shows that level of commitment to the team and to our communities we serve. Yeah, I think, going back to thinking about things in a way where if you're looking at innovation, right? Or if you're looking at how do you bring people in, look at some tasks that you have that are somewhat, repetitive, right? And look at areas where, hey, can I bring in members of communities that may be disabled, right? Or maybe basically are diagnosed with autism, and say, hey, we could potentially use these people, right? This skill, this talent that's out there to help us with some of these tasks. You see the visually impaired community or the, hearing impaired community. There's so many tasks in areas and jobs, particularly in healthcare and technology, that you could bring in. You don't need people, right, to have that traditional model. You have to almost rethink the way you're doing it, and then outreach to communities that in essence can help you. There are a lot of, in your regions, there are a lot of community advocate groups that are always looking to see, hey, how can we bring, autistic workforce in, or hearing impaired or visually impaired workforce within the efforts. So I think there's some work that you need to do in order to look at your community-based approach. And if you're an organization that's spanned across different states or counties that are long range, there's national organizations, associations you can work with to get that help. The Veterans Affairs, right? You can reach out to the Veteran Affairs and find that there's local veterans groups that are always looking for an employment in order to kind of push the dial and move efforts forward in that area. So it's work. That's where commitment comes in. It is dedication, right? This is what you're going to do. You're going to live and breathe it. But there's nothing more fulfilling than actually seeing members of those communities come in and making a difference. That is the most rewarding aspect of anything. Yes, there may be some failures, but actually there are more successes than failures. And that's the thing you chuck your hat off of, because you know that that's what we're here for, to do the right thing for our communities that we're serving. That's truly serving your community. I'd like to thank, of course, the amazing team at CHIME. CHIME, as I've seen the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging come from, the depths of nothing and to where we are today. I get so much positive feedback from our members of CHIME to say they are so happy to have these experiences. I was at Vive the other day, and for some of our members to say, hey, for the different types of health equity sessions there, I'm glad I'm included because I feel like I belong. Those, you can't take that back, and you have to thank the CHIME team for making it happen and continuing to find different ways to help us move forward. I'd love to thank Russ and the rest of the leadership team, Keith and everybody else, the board, for continuing to commit to diversity, equity, inclusion, because I know it's and belonging, because I know it's not easy. I know the easy thing is to move on. The hard thing is to continue to work. And I want to make sure that everyone is recognized for those kind of efforts.